Hey class, this is week 7 and we're almost at the end. Just as a reminder, don't forget to be working on your finals. And as a small gift to you for week 8, I'm going to give you guys full credit for your discussion board and allow you that off because you've been working so hard between quizzes and papers and discussion boards. I'm going to give you those 22 points for free. So just please be working hard on your finals. As you're getting ready to turn them in, and make sure to be mindful of the rubric for the final. This week we're going to be talking about Skinner and Bandura, and they both work through a lot of types of conditioning and behavior modification. So they're both kind of similar in that regard. Skinner died in 1990. He had a strict upbringing, a fascination with machines and animals, and rejection of feelings and emotions. He has some controversial studies that he did, things like the Skinner box and whatnot, kind of leaving a baby and not really touching it, and which could be very controversial because that child was basically part of an experiment. I believe it was his own child. But anyways, reinforcement, the basis of behavior. So respondent behavior, responses made to or elicited by environmental stimuli. So based on your environment. Conditioning is how you want to substitute that behavior and then how you're going to reinforce it. And in other studies we see like Pavlov, right? By ringing the bell, the dog salivates and then wants to go and eat. Without the bell, the dog won't eat, those kinds of things. Extinction is trying to eliminate a behavior, so we use this a lot in parenting. An operant behavior is behavior emitted spontaneously or voluntary that operates on the environment to change it. Operant conditioning in the Skinner box. So operant conditioning, procedure in which change in consequences of a response will affect rate of the response. And then the Skinner box was the rat gets the food as a reinforcer for pressing the bar. More pressing, more food. Next day can predict rat will press the bar. Like they know if I want food, I'm going to press this bar. Same with kids. If I know I want this response, I'm going to act out in this way. So if I want a sticker, right, I'm going to behave a certain way so I get that sticker, right? So that's where we look at parenting charts and things of that nature. Schedules of reinforcement. Patterns of rates of providing or withholding reinforcers. Reinforcement does not occur every time. So over time, we eventually stop doing some of those things, so you don't necessarily need the reward or the gift in order to get something. A fixed interval. Reinforcer following a fixed amount of time after response. Fixed ratio. Reinforcer following a fixed number of responses. Variable interval. Reinforcer after unpredictable amount of time, and variable ratio. Reinforcer after unpredictable number of responses. Shaping, an explanation for the acquisition of complex behavior. Behavior will be reinforced only when it approximates or approaches the desired behavior. So you as a therapist, you as a parent may shape a behavior because that's what you want. That might not be the natural thing that's going on, but that's what you're looking for. So you have to create an environment where you can do so. Superstitious behavior, persistent behavior that has coincidental and non-functional relationship to the reinforcement received results from accidental reinforcement. Self-control of behavior, ability to exert control over the variables that determine our behavior, acting to alter the impact of external events. So again, stimulus avoidance, aversive stimulation, self-administered citation, and self-reinforcement. So rewarding the self, overdoing undesired behavior, making negative consequences for the self, and removing stimulus. So this is all self-control of the behavior. Applications of operant conditioning, behavior modification, right? We use that all the time. Therapy that applies principles of reinforcement for change. I want this change to happen. So I introduce something like a token economy. They use this a lot in school systems, right? I give a ticket. You get so many tickets for your behavior. You get your tickets taken away or you don't get tickets. Punishment, application of adverse stimulus to decrease behavior. Effective only in short term. Negative reinforcement, strengthening response by removal of adverse stimuli. Consequences not as predictable as positive reinforcement, right? So the consequences may look different or may not always happen depending on whatever the situation may be. Like I said, this is used a lot with parenting tactics this day and age. You see it, therapists might help start something of this nature as a way to try to condition kids to do things that you want. The reversal experimental design was his research focus, and contributions where Skinner was potent force in psychology shaped the field more than perhaps any other individual. Approach continues to be applied in laboratory, clinical, and organizational settings. And criticisms focus on overt behavior acknowledge uniquely human qualities and instinctive drift, substitution of instinctive behaviors for behaviors that had been reinforced, later challenged by cognitive movements. So that's somewhat on Skinner. And again, you will have heard probably of Skinner before. This won't be the first time, and you hear about him often. Also, we have here Albert Bandura, whom is actually still alive. He's in his 90s. He's a very distinguished theorist. Modeling, again, basis of observational learning. He does the Bobo doll studies, which adults acted violently towards a doll, and then the children that were modeled this, tended to act out violently and sometimes even more violent than the person that they observed. Other modeling studies, children's behavior reflects their parents' behavior, which isn't that the truth, unfortunately, right, at times. Verbal modeling can induce behaviors, so can cause people to act a certain way. Characteristics of the modeling situation, 3 factors. Characteristics of the model, similarity, age, sex, status, and prestige. Characteristics of the observer, self-confidence and self-esteem. And reward consequences associated with behavior. So meaningful rewards, observation of a model being rewarded or punished. And again, this is similar to Skinner, right? We're rewarding and we are giving punishments as needed based on certain behaviors and conditions that we're trying to set. Governed by 4 mechanisms, the process of observational learning, attentional process, retention process, production process, incentive and motivational process. Attentional processes. Pay sufficient attention to a model to imitate displayed behavior. For example, staying awake during a driver's education class. Retaining or remembering the retention process, retaining or remembering the model's behavior so that we can imitate or repeat it later, so we can do it again, so we can keep it going. Taking notes on a lecture, material, or the video of a person and of them driving a car, going along with that same example. Production process, physically producing the response and receiving feedback on the accuracy of our continued practice. Getting in a car, driving sufficiently, right? Incentive and motivational process. Ultimately, if we're going along with this, would be getting your driver's license, right? We follow the process so we get the reward. Self-reinforcement and self-efficacy. Self-reinforcement, administering rewards and punishments to oneself for meeting, exceeding, or failing short of one's own expectations or standards. Self-efficacy, power of believing you can, our feeling of adequacy, efficiency, and competence in coping with life. Isn't that a lot right there? Sources of information about self-efficacy. So performance attainment, prior achievements or failures that might determine what you think you can or cannot do. Verbal persuasion, reminding people of their abilities. We do that all the time in therapy. Vicarious experience, seeing others perform successfully so it makes you believe you can do it. And psychological emotional arousal, fear, tension, and anxiety. He also saw the different stages, which we've seen before, childhood, adolescence, adulthood, and old age. Those were the development stages he looked at. And behavior modification, the goal is to modify learned behaviors and that the society determines as being undesirable. So fears and phobias, anxiety, ethical issues, manipulative behavior potentially. We do this a lot, like I said, with kids or adolescents, trying to modify things and shape them in a certain way. Contributions, objective and he was very objective, great deal of empirical support, observational learning and behavior modification are pragmatic and can be applied to resolution of problems. His criticisms are focuses on overt behavior, just like we talked about before, and treats only the symptom, not the cause, which we see with a lot of these things. And from a Christian perspective, especially, we try to look at the heart of the issue. And so with the child's behavior, sometimes we might not want them to do something anymore, but we're not getting to the reason why they're doing it. And to some people that might say, well, that's irrelevant. We just want them to stop. Well, that is true. But if we're not correcting the heart issue there, then it's really not being corrected. It's just they're acting the right way. So if their issue is going after a toy that their brother wants and it's trying to shape them like you don't take other people's toys, that's true. But ultimately, maybe we want to focus on you shouldn't be a selfish person, right? Because we see selfishness as an issue. So that's just, again, from a Christian perspective, we're looking sometimes at a root issue versus just the behavior changing. Yes, ultimately we want the behavior to change, but we also want kind of the core sin issue to change too. So that's just some thoughts to think about. But this is week 7. Thank you so much. Keep up your hard work. You're almost to the end. Have a great week.